And I'm recording. So, start with your name, and can you spell it for me?
Yep, my name's Scott Rossi, S-C-O-T-T-R-O-S-S-I.
Awesome.
Yep, I'm with Occupy SF. I'm on the medic team and the research/ideological warfare team.
So, tell me a little bit about your role as a medic and kind of what you do there.
Basically, we reformed the medic team because after the camp got evicted, a lot of our medics were street kids, and they just melted back into their former lives. So we didn't have any medics for actions. So I went over to Oakland with a couple other people from here. We all got trained. We had basic first aid training previously in our lives, so we got like street medic trained. So we know how to treat tear gas and other things, just so that we had medics for the January 20th actions here and going forward.
What do you do to treat the tear gas? Whenever someone gets tear gas, what do you do to treat them?
Tear gas or pepper spray, we use LAW, which is liquid and acid and water, LAW. It's basically the best mixture. You can find tons of recipes, but the mixture we found between Oakland and SF, the mixture that works best is milk of magnesia and water. You do 50-50, and then you put that on someone's eyes and face if they've been pepper sprayed or they're exposed to tear gas.
And I'm sure you've seen a lot of that being out in Oakland.
Sadly, yes. Most jarring was the fact we're innocent bystanders or the people from apartment buildings we had to treat because OPD just indiscriminately used tear gas on people and then didn't warn people beforehand. They didn't close their windows, anything. So we had to do, especially January 28th, the one whole complex, dozens of people got exposed, and they were trapped in their houses. The gas is still in their house. It took days before anybody contacted them and said, this is how you remove it. No one from OPD ever did. We reached out to the complex. So that was pretty alarming.
Can you tell me a little bit about January 28th, just kind of how it started, from noon at the convention center down to whenever the protesters got on the line with the police, all the way until, whenever the 400 people got arrested later on that night? Yeah,
it was actually, from my perspective, it was a slaughter. I wasn't even going to go. I had to work that day. I was at work, and I was watching the live stream at my job, and I saw them get to the convention center, and the police just started shooting tear gas. And what made me decide to leave work, because I left work and went right there, is seeing joggers and people, like innocent people on the street. I believe near 10th and Oak, the innocent people get exposed to tear gas. As far as our perspective goes, we're aware of the risks. These people weren't. And that, I was just like, I have to go. Like, my people are under attack, and these innocents are caught in the crossfire. And that's very unfair to them. So I left work, grabbed my stuff, went over there. And by the time I got into there, it was it was late afternoon, and I stuck towards the back of the march. The rest of the medics were all up front. And they all got kettled. I thankfully missed the kettle, as well as one of the Anon medics. On Twitter, they're at Anon medics. Both of us missed the kettle. We were the only marked medics. There were several people with the medical training that missed it too, but the cops were targeting us because we had our red crosses on and they were coming for us. Two kids from the Black Bloc actually saved me twice from getting arrested. The second time, I'm pretty sure that they both got arrested. Because the cops were charging at us, and the kids were like, "Dude, go, go!" And I ran, and I looked back and I couldn't see the kids, and the cops were already over where the kids were. Those two kids were. So it was January 28th. It was just a slaughter. It's like they kept us off balance, and they just kept hitting us, which is how you do counterinsurgency stuff. Unfortunately, we lost that chess match.
I watched the videos from that, and I was just really shocked that was going on in an American city.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just insane.
Yeah, and like I said, when they tear gassed in that apartment complex, it was the Uptown apartments, like I used to live there.
So let me get this clear. Whenever they kettled him, is that the apartment complex you're talking about? Is that the apartment complex where they kettled him in the square, and then they had to break down the fence?
Yes, that's the Uptown. It's at 19th Telegraph, yeah.
Yeah, they had to break down the fence just to get away from the police, yeah.
Yeah, and they made no effort to ever, OPD did not reach out to people. Like, one of the dangers about being exposed to tear gas long term is if you're pregnant, for example, you can have a miscarriage. It can cause chronic illness. It can cause breathing problems. It can cause a number of, long-term health issues. And OPD made no effort to reach out to that complex. There was people that what made me reach out to that complex was seeing YouTube video comments from people in the complex. My house still smells like tear gas 4 days later. I've been sick ever since this night, and I was like, these people, oh my God, like, and I called, and the old manager who rented my apartment to me when I lived there, I talked to him, and, he said, no, we've not had any contact from OPD, so the thing about the medics is, we do a lot of frontline stuff, but also there's this stuff that we follow up. And when we had camps, too, there was wellness checks that we were doing. Even though back then I wasn't an official medic, part of the thing on Welcome Team, when I was on Welcome Team, it was making outsiders feel welcome, but also camp residents. So we would do wellness checks and, try to get everybody socks if we could, or whatever we could do, and I just try to translate that now to the medic
really
stuff
cool.
I do. There's a lot of healing that needs to be done, a lot up here and in here, too.
Yeah, I mean, that's... social services are being cut right now, and it's terrible. I mean, there is so much mental health. Mental health needs to be addressed in America because it's been lacking for the past 30 years.
That was the hardest thing about being in a camp, was just because I'm not a mental health counselor. Like, I'm not equipped for dealing with the stuff that people have. And with some of the homeless people we invited into the camp, it was like they've been on the streets with untreated, schizophrenia or bipolar or whatever for 30-odd years. And it's like, I'm not equipped to deal with that. And we had a mental health team, which was like psychiatrists and psychologists, but they were just overwhelmed, and they basically, they did what they could, but it was just, and that really just, it's a good example of why we need these programs, and that stuff was, Reagan cut those in the 80s. That's been, some of these people have been out on the streets for 30 years since they got thrown out onto the street from their mental health services back then, and it's veterans, a lot of veterans, a lot of people who were kids, they ran away from we had a person, an old transgender person who ran away when he was 18 because he was getting, molested by his father, and he was living on the streets since then because there was no resources for him, and he had mental health issues, so he couldn't live in a shelter environment. And it was just, and that's just one story out of dozens just from this camp alone. And that, that's so hard to deal with because it's like you want to help them, but we're just not equipped,
Yeah.
Not even close. And there's only so much like a Band-Aid and my little first aid bag can do.
All right.